Difficulty in video games has always been a topic for debate. Now, some games are easy, and some, really hard. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Video games are a medium known to help relieve stress, but some games cause the complete opposite effect: teeth grinding, fist clenching, and screen punching anger. Some games cause such rage due to their difficulty, players are left to either turn it down a notch in order to have a more enjoyable experience, or quit the game entirely. Today, we are discussing some of the hardest difficulties in video games that have left players with such roid rage-like symptoms that you'd be convinced they were on it. So, without much to waste, let's get to the list. Hollow Knight. A beautifully crafted and atmospheric Metroidvania that offers a tough but rewarding experience. While its charming art style might suggest an easy ride, the game is anything but. It features brutally challenging combat, demanding boss fights, and punishing death mechanics. Just lost all your weapons and loot to the hordes of enemies in the game? Well, you're gonna have to fight him again in order to reclaim it. The game doesn't hold your hand and leaves exploration and progression up to the player, which further adds to its difficulty. However, the challenge of overcoming its many trials is deeply satisfying through persistence, observation, and strategy, making each victory feel like a mountain climb. Geometry Dash is a side-scrolling platformer mobile game created by Swedish game developer Robert Tapala. The game has 21 main levels and over 80 million community-made. Now, I don't think it is an understatement to say this is one of the hardest games ever made. Whether you started playing it in 2013 when it first came out or now makes not but a difference. Geometry Dash is all about steady progression. Play a lot of hard levels and then mix in a couple of harder, or should I say, nigh impossible levels in there. When you start to feel more comfortable with harder levels, the game offers you one that might indeed cause hair loss due to the stress it might cause from its gut-wrenching difficulty. Fight Night Champion is a boxing video game developed by EA Canada and published by Electronic Arts. It is the fifth and last entry in the Fight Night series, closing it with one of the hardest, if not the hardest, in the series. The game features 5 difficulty settings: Easy, Normal, Pro, Champion, and GOAT Isaac Frost. But we're not here to talk about the first 4. In Fight Night Champion, you are heavily reliant on large counter windows created by hula hooping in place due to the game's limited movements. The refs? Mostly there, but they behave more like an in-the-ring accessory. Punches sound like hitting an empty fridge instead of human flesh, and movements? Like you've got your feet stuck in quicksand. Now, a combination of all these results in the game being especially hard with the last bout in the game's career mode, leaving players tearing their hair out strand for strand. 2 words: Isaac Frost. This final boss is so difficult that easy mode has led to players leaving the entry and never returning, turning players against the entry straight after losing to him a whopping 500 times. Some players stop at 50 and others go to 800 attempts before calling it quits, making him one of the hardest boss fights in video games ever. Sometimes a hard game can be so rewarding the challenge is worth every corpse run. Dark Souls is a game that punishes you for making bad decisions and rewards you with enduring and overcoming those bad decisions. From Soft's 2011 Dark Souls arguably ushered in a new era of hard video games. From Soft designed Dark Souls mechanics so tightly and precisely that it's hard to argue that when things go wrong, you aren't at fault. Granted, there are instances where Dark Souls is brutally difficult to the point where you may need to grind just to level the playing field, power-wise. But the grind is what hones your skills. The more you play, the more efficient you become. But also, sometimes you need to take all your gear off and hightail it to the next bonfire, grind be damned. In Dark Souls, each life is precious, so using your second one more carefully than you did the first will always ensure you keep every strand of hair and don't hightail it to the nearest hair clinic. Sekiro is very hard, but it's also quite simple, relatively speaking. Compared to the Souls games, there's no magic, alternate weapons, stats, etc. to worry about. You're just given one specific set of abilities and every enemy or boss is balanced around them. There's a strange comfort in hitting a wall by coming to face a tough boss fight, knowing that you always have the tools you need to succeed. And that's when it starts. The doubts. Maybe I'm just shit at the game. There's no missing the fact that From Software has built its shinobi-focused adventure from the DNA of the Souls and Bloodborne series. Cuphead. This game is an absolute masterpiece. Released in 2017, Cuphead is a run-and-gun video game developed and published by Canadian developer Studio MDHR. The game follows its titular teacup-headed character and his brother Mugman as they make a deal with the devil to pay casino losses by repossessing the souls of runaway debtors. Even disregarding its art style, its gameplay is so simple but extremely effective, using its fairly basic mechanics in creative ways. It takes a bunch of basic ideas and perfects them beautifully. This game keeps you guessing and ecstatic to see what's next. Every boss and enemy has its own quirks and unique attacks, giving the game a feeling like no other. With its endearing designs, terribly hard challenges and boss fights, the soundtrack of this game should go down in gaming history, mixing swing, jazz, big band, and ragtime in different areas to amplify the experience. I would highly recommend listening to Shootin' and Lootin' or Aviary Action. The amount of effort and love that exudes from this game is astounding, quickly becoming a fan favorite. And when talking about the most criticized aspect of the game, its difficulty, one of the game's creators, Jared Moldenhauer, describes it best: it's tough but fair. Ninja Gaiden's difficulty doesn't come from it being complicated, but more from it having a lot of simple elements going on at once that need to be juggled. Foes are mostly a joke when they are alone, but in groups or combined, their attacks overlap, and their aggression hits home. One will lay down covering fire to force you into blocking, while the other rushes you with a block-ignoring grab. With heavy resource management at play mid-combat, kind of like Doom Eternal, killing enemies in certain ways reaps certain rewards, like health or money, making the economy a big part of combat. Lastly, there's the slight randomness. Enemies can and will randomly dodge or block, making every offense a gamble or dangerous, but also unpredictable. It forces you to think on the fly and disallows the singling out of foes. During combat in Ninja Gaiden, you're always making small choices. Do I dodge? Do I hold a block? Do I jump and throw a projectile? Do I jump off the wall? Do I go for the kill? What if it doesn't hit? I kind of need cash, so I better kill him through an ultimate technique, so I need an opening. But I'm low on health. Should I use a potion? Crap, the other guy is still there too, throwing shurikens. You get the idea. Should be noted that when people talk of Ninja Gaiden being difficult, they especially talk about its highest difficulty setting. Playing Ninja Gaiden 2 on Acolyte or Warrior is like playing a fancy mashing game, to be frank. Playing it on its highest setting is a test in skill. The general consensus is yes, but it's often compared to DMC1, two totally different games that play and function in entirely different ways. Some people just flat out find the first game more difficult, depending on what they're used to. But the difference? In DMC3 there will be more enemies thrown at you, and more generally perilous situations, but you always have far more options at a given moment. You are always more mobile than you were in the first game. In DMC1, you are not as mobile, your options are more limited, and you will only ever encounter one type of enemy at a time, though individually the demons have a wider variety of behaviors and attacks to compensate for this. DMC3 is faster and more complex, but so is Dante. DMC1 is slower and more methodical, but everything you do needs to be more deliberate, making the two titles completely separate on the difficulty scale. And with that, marks the end of the list. But here are a few honorable mentions. Escape from Tarkov. This isn't just a shooter, it's a trauma simulator in FPS form. Imagine looting for 45 minutes straight, picking your battles, creeping through bushes like you're made of glass, only to get one-tapped by a guy camping in a bush with a silenced Mosin. You didn't even hear the shot, just black screen, raid over. Tarkov's ultra-realistic combat and hardcore looting system turns every raid into a gamble with your sanity. Die, and everything you brought in is gone. The sound design alone will have you checking corners like it's real life. Add brutal AI, real-time player looting, and no hand-holding whatsoever, and you've got one of the most unforgiving games on the market. It's not just difficult, it's psychological warfare. F-Zero GX, a high-speed blur of neon, rage, and muscle memory. This GameCube gem still holds up as one of the hardest racing games ever created. You're not just racing, you're surviving. It demands nigh impossibly perfect laps, precision control, and god-tier reflexes. The AI cheats, the tracks are relentless, and crashing means starting from scratch. In a world of forgiving racers, F-Zero GX still eats casuals for breakfast. Sifu. Released in 2022, Sifu blends tight martial arts combat with an innovative aging mechanic that punishes failure in real time. Every death ages your character, shrinking your health but increasing your damage, forcing you to fight smarter, not harder. Timing, spacing, and pure grit are the only ways to survive. By the final level, some players emerge as mighty gods and others as a measly corpse. It's a modern test of patience, precision, and persistence, a brawler that doesn't just challenge your reflexes but your discipline too. Got your own picks for rage-inducing difficulty? Drop them in the comments and let's compare war stories. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that bell if you love games that love to punish you. Till next time.